Hi, my name's Eric1701, and this is a brand new video on Beacon 1.5, the very latest and greatest version of Beacon, and a program to manage your Ark servers. We're really excited about this version of Beacon. It introduces a couple of great new things. It's got a whole new rebuilt editors. It's just got some great new features. But the number one feature we're going to talk about, and what I feel like is the real meat of Beacon 1.5, is config sets and how you can use this to manage your servers. If you're like me, I run several clusters and I want to play more than I want to spend time running a server. So I like to use Beacon to make that so simple, and it really does once you just dive in and get the hang of where everything is. So let's just dive right in and let's talk about this new feature, config sets, in Beacon 1.5. So let's start up with project files. Setting up your project file to harness the power of Beacon 1.5 and its new config set feature is probably one of the most important things you do to promote the long-term health of your Ark server cluster. As we progress through this tutorial, you should quickly come to see the power of utilizing config sets, not only to keep your project file clean and organized, but to also harness the power of the feature to quickly and easily make changes to your settings. And these benefits, while squarely targeted at server clusters, can benefit single server owners and admins as well. The beauty of the config set is in its flexibility. Quite simply put, using config sets gives you the ability to quickly and efficiently make changes to all of your servers, or to just target just the servers you want to change. You can make sweeping changes across all of them, or roll out a special server event that just increases breeding rates, and all without changing anything in your core settings. So this is key. This is a key to the flexibility of Beacon, is that you don't have to change anything in your core settings in order to make temporary changes to your servers. So, and then when the event is over, when you want to change it back, you can do that with just a couple of clicks. So we're really going to get into that. The key to successfully utilizing the power of the config set lies in getting everything set up from the beginning. And even if you only run a single map, setting up config sets at the start can help you avoid tedious work later if you decide to add a map. And it's important to note that you're running a single map and you know you have no plans to expand. You can accomplish everything you need to just the one base config set and still utilize the power of config sets when you want to make temporary changes. So let's get started. So here on the screen you'll see the home page of Beacon, and the brand new logo that he's put on it. It's great. So we're going to need to open up a new project. So let's just start new project, just like that. You've got a project. We're going to skip down here to project settings. But before we do that, let's introduce the areas of Beacon, because I think this is pretty important, what we're looking at here. So right here where it says Untitled Project 9 and the rest of this space right here, I call this the project tabs area of the screen. So if you have multiple projects open, which sometimes you do, they'll all be spread out right there. Now this big area here underneath project settings, is this whole area is what I call the editor workspace. So this is where you're going to spend most of your time doing the work and the heavy lifting of running a server, is right here in this space. So get used to it. Over here on the left hand side of your screen, you're going to see all of the editors that are used on a day-to-day basis in Beacon in running your server. So different editors do different things, and we'll walk through them here in a few minutes. And then right here, config set base, this is the config set selector, and so this is where you're going to select those config bases to make changes. So you'll notice right now it's set on base, and that's because every project has a base config set. You can't change the name, you can't delete it. It just is. So that's the one where you're going to be doing most of the work. So right now we're in the project settings editor, and we want to change the title, and changing the title. We're going to call this. We're going to call this. We're going to call this the teaching cluster. Yeah, the teaching cluster. Oops. There we go. And so you can make it whatever you want. Most people would put the name of their server cluster there, and you can do this. And whatever other description that you want to show up when users search for servers. In the description box here, you can put anything you want. It's it doesn't really have any effect on gameplay or anything like that. So if you need to make notes about your project or things, you can do it right here. If you run a console server like a PS server, Xbox server, you're going to want to check maintain console compatibility, and that's pretty important. It keeps you out of trouble because there are some things you can do in here if you are a Steam player, that like adding mods and stuff like that will not work with console. So you just check that to make sure that you don't make any mistakes. It'll help keep that from happening. Disable project compression. These next two things you probably just want to leave alone. The projects are compressed on your hard drive so that they don't take up a lot of room, so you want to make sure you keep that unchecked unless for some reason you need the raw JSON data, and so you would check here if you want the raw JSON data. And if you're a power user doing some really technical things, that might be something you need, and this is how you would get it, by checking that right there. And then generate UCS2 files when necessary. This tells Beacon to generate files in a different text encoding. You probably can just leave that one alone too, just there. So we checked maintain console there, and so we're good. So as I said, every project has a base config set. It's automatically generated when you start a new project. Its name is always base, and it can't be deleted. The base config set is where you store and manage all server settings that are common between all of your servers, or even most of your servers. So this is the set where you will manage your breeding multipliers, stat multipliers, stack sizes, and anything else that each map has in common. So if a discussion on why certain settings should be the same across all maps in a cluster is kind of beyond the scope of this tutorial, but it's still a pretty important topic. So if you have questions about this, you can ask in the comments, or you should talk with other admins before just deciding to make the settings differently. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is how to set up more config sets. And so you do that right here, pull this little arrow down and expand that, and you'll see there's the Manage Config Sets, and you click right there and you're presented with the Manage Config Set editor. So here you can add new config sets, you can change the names of your config sets, or you can delete config sets. And you can't do anything with base, like I said before. The server count here tells you how many servers are using that config set, and of course it's going to say 0 right now because we're not doing anything with servers. So let's go ahead and add some new config sets. I'm going to add 3. I'm going to add some maps that I have in my cluster. So let's choose Aberration, and then the center, yeah, in the island. No, let's just make it island. All right, so there we go. We're done, and we got that. Oh, but remember, you can edit or delete. So let's go up here. I've changed my mind. I don't want to do Aberration. So let's add Ragnarok. It's kind of my main map, so I want to make sure it's on here. All right, so there we go. You click OK. Oh, before we leave, why don't we go ahead, because we're going to need this later, so we're going to go ahead and create an event config set. We're going to create 2. Let's call breeding, let's spell it right though, breeding event, and let's go ahead and, if I can spell, we're going to go ahead and create one called PvP, okay? And the reason I'm going to say that is because maybe your cluster runs PvE during the week and PvP on the weekend, and you have to do that switching. And before it was really tedious, and now it's not going to be tedious. I'm going to show you why. All right, so there we go. You'll notice that even though we created those, we're still on the base config set because we haven't changed them. But if you pull it down, you'll see that they are here. So that's excellent. That's exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and go on to the next set. to the next step. So what we're going to do is we're going to import our first server. Now, if you'll notice starting from about right here, the rest of the video is really squarely pointed at Nitrado users. But all of the concepts here apply to any server provider that you're using, except for the deployment and possibly the import. Alright, so here, like I said, I'm going to import my server. So click the import button. And as I said, I use Nitrado as my service provider, so I'm going to go ahead and click on Nitrado and then click continue. Now it's asking for permission to open a browser tab. So that's what I'm going to do. Go ahead and hit continue here. And here it is actually opening up that browser tab for you. And once it gets there, we're going to enter in our credentials. So my account credentials I'm entering now. And then once we get to the next screen, we're going to click on Grant Access. That's going to bring up the purple screen, and you can close that tab now. So here we are. You'll notice that it's finding the servers. And I'm just going to bring you back when it's found all the servers, because there's quite a few. And we're back, and as you see, it has found all the servers that are on this account, but we're only interested in Ragnarok right here, so we're going to click that and click next, and it's going to take a few seconds to go ahead and search through the Ragnarok INIs on the Nitrado server and build up a config file for us. Alright, so here we are. Let's go ahead and expand this so we can see everything that's offered to us. Now, these are all of the things that it has gone out there and found that are sitting on the server at the moment, and we're going to want to import most of these. Now, remember, up here it says config set base is active, so anything that we import is going to automatically go into the base config set or the active config set. So again, remember, in the base config set, we only want to store things that are common to all or most of the maps. So on my server, I have custom loot drops across every map. Some of them are a little bit alike, but for the most part, they're custom across maps. So the very first thing that I don't want is I don't want to bring in the loot drops. Okay, we go down the list. The next thing is project settings. It's already unchecked, and since we've already entered in our own project settings, it knows that we don't want to import that. So we're going to go down here and look at the rest of this stuff. Here are creature adjustments. I adjust creatures on a map by map basis, so I don't want that in my base config set, and I don't want creature spawns either, because they are also adjusted on a map by map basis. So we're going to come down here. All of this looks good, and I'm going to, oh, there's custom config. I'm going to want that because I want all of the line items to be brought in, so that for some things that Beacon doesn't handle, I can adjust on my own. So I'm going to go ahead and check that. It's going to pop up this little warning. It's just kind of basically letting you know that, you know, it's going to go ahead and import all that. So we're going to say yes, and everything's going to be fine. And we're going to hit OK. And bam, it's done, it's imported, and here are all the editors. So just quickly, we'll look here. Here's all my breeding stuff, and I can verify that that's correct. I don't make any changes to crafting costs on a global basis, at least not right now. Creature adjustments, they're empty. Creature spawn should be empty. So should loot drops, and then you'll see the rest of this is all there. Now let's go to custom config, and there it is. There's some entries from our game user settings. Here's the entries from the game INI. So that looks good. So we have, these are things that are all shared across all of my maps, whether it's 3 or it's 10 maps, they're shared all across them. So I want to keep those things in base. But now I want to go ahead and pull those things in from that Ragnarok map that I didn't get. So I need to change my config set. I want to change it to Ragnarok. That makes it active. You'll see here that all of this stuff looks, either it's empty or like in this case, you can see that it's all set to 1, which is default. So it's dimmed out, and that's important. So whenever you jump between config sets, anything that's grayed out means that it's not any different than base. It's not different from base. Important concept. If it's dimmed out, it's not different from base. So let's go ahead and import again. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Nitrado, and I tell you what, I'm going to bring you back once it has found my servers. Be right back. Alright, so we're back. It's found our servers, so we're going to click Ragnarok again. We're going to give it a chance to build those same files again. And it's just about done. And there we are. Alright, so this time let's go ahead and expand it again so we can see everything. And here we are. And so I don't want everything. So a little power user tip here. If you will hold down on a Windows computer, if you hold down the control key, or on the Apple computers, if you hold down the command key and just click any one of them, it will turn all of them off. And of course it works in reverse to turn them all on. So we don't want all of this. So I want to go ahead and grab my loot drops. I definitely need that. I need creature adjustments, and I need creature spawns. So those are the 3 things that we need out of this Ragnarok file. So let's go ahead and do it, and it's done. They're there. If we jump over to, and this will light up in a second, if we jump over to loot drops, we'll see that it's there. Creature spawns is there, and everything. So that was great. So let's go ahead and do this again for the island. And so I'm going to go ahead and import this, and I will bring you back in just a second. All right, it's found my servers. There's the island, so I'm going to go ahead and choose it. Hit next. Once again, we're going to wait just a second for it to go ahead and build the config files that it needs. Pull out all that information. There it is. We're going to make this bigger, and then we're going to go ahead and hold down our secret key to get all of these unselected. And now I'm going to quickly go through here and select the things I need. I need loot drops. I need creature adjustments. I need creature spawns. But that's not all we need. We also want to bring in our server link and our map. Okay, so let's do that, and there it is. So now if we move back and forth between these here, there they are. So we're going to do the same with the center, and when I get those on the screen, I'll bring you back. Alright, so there we are. You'll see that we have all of our servers, and we're looking for center. Oh wait, the center is one of the 3 maps that I have that are not on this Nitrado account. So we need another Attribution account. Luckily, there's a button right here, link another Attribution account. So we're going to go through the same procedure again. It's done, so we'll switch back here. And so there you have it. We have it there through the magic of editing, and there it is, the center. So we're going to hit that again and give it a chance to quickly parse those config files all the way around the world, wherever the server is located. And there they are. So we're going to expand this again, just make it easier. We're going to unselect everything and hit loot drops, creature adjustments, creature spawns, server link, and add map. So there we go. We've got them back. There we go. And everything is there. The final concept that must be understood to fully harness the power of config sets is the priority of config set deployments and what that means for your settings. When you tell Beacon to deploy or export, Beacon assembles your INI file based on what you have done inside the Beacon editors. So here's the order that Beacon pulls information into a new INI file. Number 1, Beacon gathers all the information that is in the base sets custom config. So here it all is. So it gathers that up. It says, okay, let me start writing this INI file. And it grabs this stuff and it writes it out there to the INI file. Then it goes through the base config sets editor. So that would be all of these other editors. It grabs that and it takes all of those values that it finds inside those editors. It compares it to everything inside of your INI files, and anything that's different is overwritten by the new information that came from the editors. The third thing it does is it goes to the next config set that you've assigned. So wait a minute, what do you mean config set that I've assigned? Well, let's jump here to the servers. Okay, let's jump to Ragnarok, and right now you can see that the only config set assigned is base. So let's choose what we want. So let's start here. Base is always there. You can't unselect it or do anything with it, but we want Ragnarok because this is Ragnarok, right? And let's go ahead and do that for these others. So let's jump over here to this one and choose Island. And then we'll jump over here to this one and choose the center. All right, so real quickly, I skipped over this, but it's important to note that here, this is the server thing. These are the three that we linked earlier by the import. And so this is the server stats here. It tells you that it's currently running. We could stop it or start it from here if need be. There's a notes tab where you can make any notes that you need to about the server. You could keep track of like new things to test or try, what you need to have, if you could keep a running list of times that you've deployed so that you can figure out whether you've deployed since your last changes. Here's your server name. You can make it anything you want. Your message of the day, you can do all this here. If you want to make your message of the day have some color, highlight what you want. There's the little paintbrush, and then you can choose color, and you'll notice that HydroCourse is red. There it is. How long you want it to do. Here's your admin password. You can set it from right here, as well as if you're going to run a server password, you can set it from here, or a spectator password. So you can do that. If you want to see the code behind the message of the day, that's the little I over here. And if you want to copy your message of the day so that you can paste it over to your other servers, if you want it to be all uniform, you can do that there. So you'll see here, like we're talking about, our config sets that we've chosen are base in the center. So back to our succeeding level of priorities here. Again, Beacon gathers all the information from the custom config editor, which is this one right here, and then it gathers everything else from the editor and overwrites anything that was here that doesn't match. Then it gathers from the next config set you've chosen. So in this case, it's the center. So it's going to go here to the center, and it's going to grab anything else here that's different from the base, and it's going to write that to the INI file. And so you just rinse and repeat. So if you had multiple config sets assigned, it's going to do that. And this is where the power of config sets is. This is the power of config sets. So this is an important concept. So what we didn't do is talk about the other config sets I created. Let's do that right now. So let's quickly go to PvP. Like we said earlier, maybe you're running a cluster that runs PvE during the week and weekend PvP. And before, what you're having to do is stop your servers, go into the INI file, scroll down and find the setting, and change the setting from false to true, and then restart your servers. Well, you're still going to have to do one of those things and let Beacon handle the rest. So let's do that. We're in PvP. That's our current one. We're going to go to custom config. You see here it's empty because everything is in the base. So we're going to go here and we're going to put server PVE equals false. Okay, so that's the command for server PV, to change your settings from PVE to PvP, and that's it. That is literally all you have to do. And so we would come over to switch back to base and go to servers, and when the weekend comes, we would come here and say, oh, it's Friday, let's activate PvP. And now when it writes out the new thing, it's going to pull from base, the center, and finally from PvP. So if you look in base right here, custom config, we'll scroll down and you'll notice right here, PV server PVE equals false. Well, you know, okay, so I had it backwards. But anyway, that would have said if you were running a, let's say that this says true because you're, like I said, you're running a PvE server. So without the PvP event chosen, it would be a PvE server. And then when you go to servers and activate PvP, this is going to be written there instead. So it will overwrite the true with the false. All right, now that we've got the PvE event set up, let's go ahead and let's do a breeding event. So I like to run a breeding events occasionally, and it's always been pretty difficult, but it's not anymore. So let's switch over to our base config set and look at our breeding multipliers. This is all of my breeding stats on my server cluster normally. So we're going to run a breeding event that allows our players to mature their dinos faster. We're not going to adjust anything else, so their dinos can't lay eggs faster. The eggs are not going to hatch any faster, but the babies are going to actually mature faster, so they can raise that Giga army they've always wanted a little bit faster. So again, this is what it is here, and so let's switch over quickly to our breeding event here, and we're back in the breeding multiplier editor, and you'll see I've already copied over all of my settings that I normally have. In this case, we're just going to adjust this one. We could do double, but I think I'm going to run triple. So let's enter 240 here, and we can leave all of the rest of this stuff alone because we're just going to change the mature speed multiplier. And there you have it. On the weekend, we're going to go to base, and we're going to go to servers, and we're going to go to center, and we're going to activate the breeding event. So this will be fun. So not only do they get to raise Gigas lickety split, but they're going to have to be worried about getting raided while they're doing it. So that should make things fun. So you see here that the Beacon app builds your INI files from the ground up, literally. So base first, then the next one checked, and then it goes up one more and does breeding event, and on top of that PvP. So come Monday morning or Sunday night or whenever you want to deactivate all of this, all you would need to do is jump right in here to this screen right here to servers, choose deactivate whichever one of these, hit OK, and then hit deploy for a Nitrado server or export for a non-Nitrado server, or Nitrado if you prefer to do it that way. So let's talk about that. So deploy and export work basically the same way. Deploy just like does it all for you, and export has a few manual steps. First, let's do deploy. If you hit deploy, you have this, all your servers will be listed here, and you can deploy them all at once or one at a time, however you want to do it. But you can, if you have 25 servers, you can deploy all 25. Over here you have backup game INI and game user settings INI before making changes. I suggest that you have that on. If there's any problem during deployment, you'll have a copy of the INI that was there before. That could be helpful, especially if you need to figure out just exactly what went wrong. And then this one, allow me to review changes before updating server. That is up to you whether you want to do that, but if you do check it, it is going to run you through a list of things that are different. Now, I'm not going to begin this because my servers are live at the moment and I do not want to interrupt the players that are on. So that's what would happen. But if you did, it would run through the process of deploying the servers. It'll stop the server for you. It will wait the required 3 minutes, the recommended 3 minutes, if you will, and then it will make the changes and it will restart the servers for you, and all of that will be listed line by line so you can see exactly what's going on and where you are in the process of deployment. So as you can see, the Config sets introduce a whole new level of control over your server. It allows you to start and stop events, whereas before what we had to do was edit in this case our main file. And so there were several ways around that. We could like have little stickies posted around our computer, or we could take screenshots, or we would have saved what we had already to a different file and started with a new file and deployed or exported that, and that was just a lot of trouble. And with this now, with just several clicks of a button, you can enable and disable events and small changes or large changes to your server whenever you want, with just several clicks of a button. And that is a great change to Beacon. Well, I hope you found that deep dive into a Beacon 1.5's newest and greatest feature, in my opinion, config sets. And if you liked the video, I ask that you hit that like button and punch that subscribe button if I've earned a subscription, and let me know in the comments what other Beacon subjects or Ark subjects you'd like me to cover as we get this channel off the ground. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.